adopted a law where all districts need to implement a policy about cell phone usage in their districts during the school day. So we have done that, and tonight we just want to talk about, this is a new journey for all of us together, and we want to help you help us navigate this. So if I could just kind of get a check of who's here. Raise your hand if you have a kiddo in elementary, pre-K through 5th. Okay, wonderful. How many of you guys have secondary kids, middle school to high school? Okay, fantastic. So we're going to watch the film here in just a little while, and that's the handout. If you happen to pick up a handout while you were out in the front. That's from Screenagers, and then on the back, it has a lot of great resources that we get to use for free since we've connected with them. And then on the front, there are some good discussion points that you might want to start having with your students if you're not sure where to start. So, like I said, this is going to be an ongoing learning curve for all of us, but we believe in Norman Public Schools. We always say we're going to follow the law, and we always will, but we collaborate. And so we want to collaborate with you guys to make this as smooth on everybody involved that we possibly can. Also, we want to be sure that we're in this with you. So we're doing this together. So we're going to have some time to process with our panel, if you guys want to come on up. The interesting thing about this video is that it was made in 2016. So that's been a minute. And as we all know, that technology and things and research as well is constantly changing. So I've invited a group of local community experts to talk with us today, and I've given them some questions that they're going to kind of answer for us, and then we might have time to take a few questions from you guys as well. When I was a principal, I got to know Brianna Norman with Central Oklahoma Mental Health, and she helped me with so many things with my students, with families, and so she's just a tremendous advocate for children in our community. And so when I needed someone to talk to you all, I immediately thought of her, and she brought a whole team. That's how awesome that she is, and the people that she works with are. So Brianna, I'm going to ask you to introduce your team real quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So this is Christina Schwartz. She's an LCSW. She is our Children's Clinical Director at the Community Mental Health Center. This is Alex Porter. She's an LPC, and she is actually right now our Adult Clinical Director at the Community Mental Health Center, but has previous experience as the Clinical Director at the Children's Recovery Center, which is an inpatient unit for kids 12 to 17. And this is Katie Hawkins. She's a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Also has previous experience as a nurse at the Children's Recovery Center, but now treats kids in our clinic.
Okay, so this is going to be pretty casual. If you guys want to just somebody hop in and answer, but feel free to add things as they come to your mind too. So the first thing I'd like you to talk about is, given the research showing that multitasking impairs performance and overstimulation can tire the brain, especially in children, how should educators and parents respond to the increasing demands for constant digital engagement?
I think that, you guys hear me? This is okay. Okay. I think that there's no such thing as multitasking. We do a couple of different things badly, and it actually takes us longer to do these multiple different tasks, not as well as we could, than if we just did one task at a time and did them in succession. The brain, when it's overstimulated, it just doesn't work well. It doesn't record information, it doesn't recall information. So I think kind of the best way to handle that is to just take lots of breaks. Especially in the learning environment, have limits on how long you're going to sit down and work on an assignment. Take breaks, get up, go play, go move around. And if you have a kid that has a condition like ADHD or autism, they need even more breaks. It's more like one-to-one. If you're going to do 10 minutes of learning, then you need to have 10 minutes of play. And it's for kiddos that are neurotypical, they may be able to go a little bit longer, but don't push. If your kid says, I'm tired, I can't learn anything, I'm reading this, I've read the same paragraph 5 times and nothing's sticking, probably not the best time to just keep reading it over and over again. Take a break, get up, go do some stuff. Do do something fun, something rewarding, and then go back and, finish the assignment. We need to learn the importance of finishing things, but we also need to learn that we can take breaks and we don't have to be miserable the whole time we're doing that stuff. So.
I think to add to that, especially as we think about going back to school and that transition, which can be hard for a lot of kids depending on what summer looks like and what their schedule has been, we want to think about that idea of, it's commonly called restraint collapse. And so if we're holding it together all day at school and we're trying to follow these schedules, we're trying to manage assignments and whatever other kind of duties we have to take care of, when we get home, we want to make sure that we're focusing on having a solid transition to that time, being able to give ourselves a break, give our minds a break, give our bodies a little bit of a break. And so talking with your kids, maybe establishing some expectations about that and what that might look like for you guys as a family, or just level setting those expectations, especially with the new school year coming up. It's a great time to say, hey, we're going into a different schedule. Let's talk about what that's going to look like. Let's set some expectations now, because it's a lot easier to set that firm boundary at first than it is to fight it later on about it.
And if you have a kiddo too working, on their computer doing an assignment on technology, that break shouldn't be with another piece of technology. Right? We don't want to swap out the computer for the cell phone or the video game. We want to swap it out for something, face-to-face conversation with somebody, or reading a book, or doing something physical outside, but actually stepping away from that technology.
There's a concept called green time versus screen time, and so trying to balance that idea of more natural elements, right? Let's go outside, or let's have that personal connection rather than screen time. So finding that can be an easy way to keep it in mind.
Okay, thank you. Next, let's talk about ways that social media is shaping the self-image, emotional well-being, and relationships of today's youth, especially girls, and how can families and schools provide leading support in navigating these pressures?
Well, I can tell you that between 2000 and 2018, the rates of eating disorders in the United States among teenagers doubled, which is a huge increase in the number of kiddos. And it's not just girls, it's boys too. There are expectations for a certain body image. I try to remind my kids, there's 6 people in the world that look like supermodels and 8 million that don't, so 8 billion, but it's really hard. They have to deal with that pressure every single day. They have to go to school and listen to it. They see all these images online of what perfection looks like, and I'm like, none of us look like that. If you look around the room, none of us look like that. But they still expect this, and they, get kind of that dopamine feedback from people hitting like on their pictures, and that kind of gives them a little bit of a boost. And then their self-identity gets wrapped up in that. So when they're not getting likes on their pictures, then they're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting likes? Well, maybe I need to go a little bit further. Maybe I need to take this a little bit, a little more risque, things like that. Those, especially when you're younger and you're not making the best decisions, you don't have a frontal lobe, which is where all the good decision is making. You don't develop that until you're 25 or 30 if you have ADHD or autism. So if you are not making the best decisions, some of those pictures can come back and haunt you. Or, what we're seeing now is people hacking into phones, taking pictures without permission, and then messaging people and saying hey, I'm going to release this photo unless you, do X, Y, or Z, or send me this money. And we've actually had an increase in suicides because of this stuff. Kids are really afraid to talk about it and tell their parents. And I feel like it's just really dangerous. It opens the door for a lot of really scary things to come in, and it really, eating disorders have a lifetime suicide risk rate of about 30%. Major depression disorder, which is mostly associated with suicide, is 20%. So it's 50% more deadly to have an eating disorder than it is to have a depressive disorder. And I think 49% of kids said that they have changed their eating behavior because of what they've seen on social media, which is really scary. Also, we're talking about having these conversations, being face-to-face. If parents are, if you guys are in your phone and you're not noticing that your kid isn't eating, if they're not, if they ate one meal or they didn't have any snacks, if we're not eating together, if we're not talking about food, having conversations about that stuff, it slides under the radar until it gets really serious. By the time we start seeing kids that come into clinic because they have an eating disorder, they have some significant impairment. by the time they come in, and sometimes they require hospitalization for that. So I think that what we can do better is just teach about, you know, the images online, show people how, like, their images can be edited, you know, to look totally different. Like, take a picture of yourself, make yourself look like a supermodel, and show your kid, and be like, does that look like me? No? Okay, well, nobody else looks like that either. Just have conversations about it. Be paying attention, you know, don't have your head in your phone yourself, you know, and expect them not to do it, especially when we're trying to eat or we're having conversations about topics of health, or topics of like body positivity, things like that. We need to be engaging in these conversations actively, and not just kind of waiting for the opportunity for them to have them. Go ahead and make those opportunities yourself.
I think just everything you said is totally on point, but that idea that having an open dialogue with the kids, that it's a highlight reel, right? Nobody is posting the things they don't want other people to see. And so just being very real with your child and setting those expectations. And sometimes I think about it in the sense of when we have a child who is suicidal, we develop a safety plan, right? We have this idea of what are some warning signs that things are getting really bad, we're getting to a crisis, so that we can be prepared. And we want to have that before the crisis comes up. If you consider that there's potential risk for your kid especially, maybe have these conversations now where the risk isn't so prevalent, and talk to them about how will you know that it's starting to affect you? What can you pick up on? Is it going to be changes in your appetite? Is it going to be the way you're dressing or the way that you're editing your photos? And have that dialogue so that if things start to get bad, not only can you reach out, but they might feel more comfortable coming to you about it as well.
There was a part of the question is anything positive about the use of social media. So one of the things that has been more positive is we do see more kids reaching out for help, using mental health applications, using helplines, things like that to get support. But what we would encourage is that those things can happen without social media also, right? We can have conversations with our kids about if they're struggling or their self-worth, or all the things we heard in the video. We know that sleep is impacted, we know that self-esteem is impacted, and so being aware of those and just staying on top of it, even with the positives of kids having that outlet.
I just want to say also, like, opening that bridge of having them come to you. Like, if something does happen online, I can't promise you're, never going to make a bad decision, take a photo you wish you hadn't. But if that does happen, if they get a message from somebody that has hacked their phone, like, them being able to come to you and actually talk to you about that could be life-saving, life-changing. So make sure that you open that door and like, hey, no matter what happens, we're going to be here for you. Please come talk to us before you do anything. There's nothing that you can do that's making me, not love you. So having those kind of conversations and supporting their mental health goes a long way. For them to be able to say like, hey, this thing happened, and process it as a family together rather than, a 15-year-old having to deal with that by themselves without that frontal lobe development to make good decisions. So.
How does excessive screen time affect children's ability to develop empathy? And what practical steps can families take at home to nurture empathy in the digital age?
Okay. I love this question because I feel like I see parents coming into our office all the time talking about how their child turns into a different human being or a different monster or beast when they've been on the screen time for too long. And so I think when kids are just primarily relying on screen time for entertainment and even sometimes socializing, that completely limits their opportunity to interact with other people and learn from social cues and social skills, how to work out problems, and not doing it through a screen where it feels a lot safer to say things maybe we wouldn't say in person, or act in ways that we probably wouldn't normally act, especially if a parent or an adult isn't around watching. So I think the best solution or the best answer to this question is time, taking breaks. So if you're going to give them an hour of screen time, then we need to do an hour break, maybe even longer. I mean, that needs to be connecting with other people, kids their age, adults, family, siblings, whatever that may look like for your kid. But they have to be able to interact with others to learn how to develop those social skills that are really important, especially with the younger kids. I feel like it's incredibly crucial for them to have those social interactions on a day-to-day basis outside of the screen.
I would say that the studies that we've seen have shown that the parts of the brain that are responsible for empathy, such as the anterior insular cortex, are affected, the development is affected, along with the basal ganglia, which they had talked about a little bit in the movie there. That part of the brain is responsible for developing motor coordination and also habit formation, response to reward. So those parts of the brain are affected by social media and screen time. It can actually affect the integrity of the white matter in the brain. So the brain is made up of two different kinds of matter. There's the gray matter on the outside, which is where all the information is stored, and then the white matter on the inside, where all the information is transmitted. And imagine, having holes in that area, like having, gaps in that area doesn't have the integrity that other people's brains do. If you're trying to learn and think and develop a brain, and you have, the integrity of that part of the brain is altered, it can definitely affect so many parts of your life. Especially with empathy. We have to have interactions with other regulated nervous systems to develop a regulated nervous system on our own. Nervous systems look for other regulated nervous systems to co-regulate with. That's how we learn those skills. And if you're not having interactions with other people, Cocomelon unfortunately does not have a nervous system to co-regulate with. So, toddlers are not learning that as the same that they would. They're not interacting with their siblings the same as they would normally. A lot of irritation, frustration with, younger siblings interrupting screen time. Instead of having these relationships, playing together, playing games together, doing things like that, building those social relationships that they will count on for the rest of their life. So I think just what Christina said, more face-to-face time, more actual interaction with other humans, learning how to interact with other humans when things are uncomfortable, right? Like, a lot of kiddos have trouble when there's conflict. How do we deal with conflict? You have to practice it. You have to do it when you're younger, and then you develop that skill as you get older. But if you are, face down on the screen, you're not getting that practice time.
Pro-social skills are called pro-social skills because they're modeled. We learn them from each other. And if we're asking our kids to do things that we're not doing ourselves, then we need to take a beat and look inward there.
Okay. What are some realistic strategies that families can use to set healthy tech boundaries, especially when children push back or when parents themselves struggle with screen time?
I like this question a lot because it's about power struggles. You guys are the parents in the room, and by having that title, you hold the power as well. Have to use it wisely, right? But setting the expectation from the beginning, maybe not a 5-page contract, right? But maybe setting the expectation realistically about screen time, what's allowed, what's not allowed, that you're going to monitor the device and be in charge of the device, and that device is on loaner to your child who's using that device. To avoid the power struggle from the beginning, I think a lot of times what I see most often in therapy is parents who, I don't want to upset my kid because if I take their phone, they're going to rage, they're going to break something, they're going to tell me that they're suicidal. If you've reached that point, you should go find a therapist because you've gotten to this point where you're deeply involved in this power struggle with your kid where they are getting to dictate the rules around screen time when it should be the other way around.
I'm also a huge fan of screen time tracking. Like the iPhone always has screen time, and you can set limits by app, by day of the week, and you have complete control around that as a parent. It's not always the easiest thing to set up, but I promise once you get it set up and you learn how to use it, it's going to be your best friend because you hold the power to them having access to some of that stuff. And then there are also third-party apps that you can download now to try to keep track of some of the screen time use. Oh, you're staring at me like that. Thank you. So, like she said, you're the parent, you have control over it, you pay the bill. I guarantee you guys pay the bills on those cell phones, not these younger kids. So, set the limits around it, but also, like she said, set the expectation beforehand. We can't give them something and let them have free reign and then say, oh, just kidding, we're not doing it that way. That just creates a bigger fight.
Which I have to balance on the other side because I meant to say this too. completely taking away your kid's technology if you need to for whatever reason. Your kid has access to technology even if you take their phone or iPhone away. Their friends will share, I promise. And so
I had a child send a text message with a smart refrigerator.
smart kid.
That happened.
I know. And so just knowing that that's a reality. Your kid's going to have access to technology, and so just be mindful of that, which is where the healthy limits come in to start with. Also, I have a 9-year-old, and the way we talk about screen time, because they said it in the video, which is really important, right? It was, if you don't explain it to me, I'm gonna do it anyways and just see what happens. She's little, she's 9 now, but we talk about, it's my job as your parent to keep your brain healthy. It's my job as a parent to make sure that you are a healthy individual, and the way that we're gonna do that is limit our screen time.
I think openness and honesty too, because we grow up, we are digital people as well. We are on our phone for work, we're on our phone, looking at Amazon or Etsy or whatever, after work. And so being real about it and be like, yeah, I have a problem with that too. Like I probably should set some limits for myself. What do you think we should do for our family? What should our rules be? And have them involved in the conversation. You still have parental override of well, I disagree, I think we should do this instead. But I think having them in the conversation, inviting them into that, discussing it, is really healthy, and it's a good way to do that. I myself, I have an app on my phone, and it makes my screen go black and white at a certain time every night, so I know it's time to go to bed. So, just sharing that with them and being like, hey, this is how I know it's time to go to bed, dude. This is a good idea. Just talking about it, being open about it, sharing your own experience of I really like this game, but I have to stop playing it because I have to go to work in the morning and I have to sleep, just explaining that and being open with them and saying you're not the only person that struggles with this, if grown-ups struggle with it too. Let's make a plan together so that we can be healthier as a family.
When it comes to, if you're looking for some guidance to really set some of these expectations, the American Academy of Pediatrics has, they call it the 5 C's, and I want to read them so I can make sure I'm sharing correctly. But the first is the child, so knowing your kid, what are they using it for, what's going on. The content is the next one, and so what are they seeking, and is it safe, appropriate content? And then calm, which I think, especially as a group of therapists, is really important when we're talking about it, is that can't be their only way to regulate. And it can't be the way that we wind down at the end of the day. The screens need to go away for bedtime. And then the 4th C is crowding out, so what are we using our screens or our tech to avoid, and how are we using that in a way that's safe or appropriate? And then that last one is always the communication piece, having that dialogue. So that might be a good way to sit down and really start these conversations and have kind of a framework to go from.
I also included, out on the table out there, there's a chart that has appropriate screen time use divided by age. That's from the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. So these are people with sleep disorders, depression, things like that. This is the screen time recommendations from those doctors. Take it with you, put it on the fridge, and be like, hey, here's what the recommendations say.
We have a couple of minutes, and it's important to me that you know that you're free to go at 7:30. I promoted this as 6 o'clock to 7:30, but in full transparency, Brianna sent me a text during the video and said they would be willing to take a couple of questions if you have those. So we have about 5 minutes that we can use to have them answer a question or two. So I see your hand. Would you like to ask your question?
for the teachers,
I'll
the
try
audience,
to
but
do that.
my first thought is, are we talking and communicating with the school about special accommodations to limit the screen time, IEPs, 504s, those types of things?
We talked about the access to YouTube and won't want it.
So,
If they don't go to school with their personal devices, they can still use the school tablet that's provided to them to get on YouTube, and the teachers are assigning YouTube. So if we don't give YouTube to them on their screen time, like you were saying, use screen time, if we don't allow it, they go to school and the teacher will assign an assignment that's on YouTube, and all they have to do is click on that, and they can get into YouTube.
so what I will say is you are the parents, and thank you for sharing this stuff, and I hear you. I would encourage you from day one, communicate with your teachers, with your principal, with me. Let us know what you're concerned about so that we can help you. You help us by letting us know things like this. So just communicate, and we will, you are the parents, you can tell us what is happening and what you need for your student. We will always honor that.
And we talked about everybody trying to
Okay.
communicate about that.
And they're still talking to each other back and forth in school, and you know they don't have their phone, they're messaging each other through their computers.
Yeah, I think that kind of maybe speaks to a little bit of what Bree was saying earlier about how they're still going to have access if you take away their devices at home. They will find ways, like communicating through, sharing notes and Google Docs and all the, I feel like I've seen a handful of the tricks. And maybe sometimes that comes down to having conversations that look like what you're allowed to do and you have access to at school is for school, but that doesn't mean that it changes at home. I know that creates a bit of a power struggle in some places, but again, I would listen to what Carla's saying too about communicating with the teachers and the staff.
And
I'll say
I
too,
would love to talk with you about those situations. Please don't hesitate you're going to get my card when you leave. If you'd like it, just reach out. Technology is constantly changing. Kids are a lot more advanced, some of them, than we are. And so we always want to know, we can't, things happen, but this is all causing us all to look at things and examine things closely. So bear with us while we keep our learning curve steep as well, but please reach out if you have specific questions like that. I'm more than happy to talk with you, and if I can't answer it, I can put you in touch with someone who can.
I have a comment that was kind of directed toward that. We are starting a new middle school that we're not familiar with this year. And one of our concerns was, because we've had one go through middle school and now I'm in high school, was just the sheer volume of time on a device. And while it's not at the pace we would all like it to be, it sounds like they're trying to make small adjustments. Like sixth graders now will not, the iPads will be classroom set iPads, whereas they won't go get them in the morning and take them with them all day. And the principal said they're hoping that this makes teachers more mindful about just how frequently they're utilizing the tablets, because they're charged more frequently. The children will have to be logging in all the time, and that if they think that it will take away from, it'll keep the teachers from using them as frequently as they have been, just because the access will not be an all-day thing. So it's, like I said, it's not going to get the rate any of us would like, but it did sound like a positive push in a different direction. So I'm hopeful in, years to come that it will be different, but I think it's a, good and bad type.
Thank you. Okay, it is 7:32, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'll be available for questions or further discussion, but our theme, the way that we're approaching this all this year, and you've probably seen it on social media or in your email, is that we're powering down to power up. And so this is just part of what we'll be doing. Like I said in the beginning, we're kind of navigating this new issue together, but we will have more opportunities for screenagers. All the videos are available, and we'll be communicating with you about those. We also have some parent universities coming up with Abbott House that they come in and talk about all the scary stuff about online cybersecurity and things like that. So this is just the beginning. I will be sending you guys the survey, so if you haven't already signed in and given me your email, I cannot tell you how much I would appreciate if you would do that so that I can get some feedback from you and help to know where we need to go and what your ideas and thoughts are. So again, thank you so much for being here on this hot summer night, right before school starts. You guys are troopers, and I really, really appreciate you. And I have cards on the table, handouts from Screenagers, and handouts from our guests. So please take whatever you feel would be helpful for yourself and your family. Have a good evening. Thanks again.